Welcome to my class. I haven't yet gotten the memo that says I'm supposed to only have PowerPoint presentations and have you work out of a workbook, so I am going to pretend that we're still in class. I'm going to do weird videos for almost everything I expect you to know. We are going to read, of course, and we're going to use primary readings, not some corny textbook. And so I'm going to be here to help you through everything. All right, so let's start the introduction. I will introduce myself in a second, right? But I am Jeff, right? You will never hear me say my last name, so you never think of using it, right? And my own family mispronounces it, so will everyone. So I'm just Jeff. What I do in class, and this is what I'm going to imitate, is I'm going to skip over the usual things that you start with in order to get the hardest question out of the way early. Let me explain. There will be a number of really difficult things we're going to deal with this semester. They're all very interesting and very fun to learn, but they are tough. Philosophy can be tricky, and I'm going to deal with some of the trickiest parts, and here's the deal. I am going to answer all the questions you might have really clearly. You are going to hammer me over email and discussion boards if I'm ever unclear, because it is my job to be clear. If you're not understanding something, then I am not doing a good job. And I will do a good job. The only time I'm going to let you expect less than perfection from me is right now. This first question is the only question where I am going to expect only, say, B minus clarity. Everything else you need to expect perfect clarity or tell me I suck. Okay? Now, the first question, sadly, is what is philosophy? Think of how sad it is to have a career that you can't really explain, right? So, what is philosophy? Imagine asking that question to your dumbest relatives, right? So, pick out that crazy uncle that is constantly yelling because of Fox News and ask him what philosophy is. Oh gosh, right? That is what it's like to be a philosopher. Have people not understand what your life is all about. Let me start with my favorite joke that uncle will probably tell you, right? Let's try it. What is the difference between a large pizza and, like me, having a bunch of degrees in philosophy? Think about it. Obviously, yes, the pizza can feed a family. That is how our society views people like me. If you are smart, you are useless because you don't get paid, right? Well, I actually get paid, but still, this is worthwhile for every career. All right, so hardest question. What is philosophy? All right, so let's start with a very practical piece of advice. When somebody asks me what I do, or, what my career is, or something like this, I lie. Unless I can tell that this person loves books and they're a big nerd, I don't dare tell them what I really do because of the misunderstandings about it. So I'll usually say something like, I research math or something. Now, if you say something like, I research math, if you're not a nerd, you don't want to talk to that person, and so we all win. They get to avoid a nerd as they run away as soon as I say math, and I don't have to try to explain things. But if they do say, oh my gosh, I love math, then I tell them the truth and tell them that I'm a professor of philosophy. So, oh, by the way, what happens when I do accidentally misjudge whether this person is a nerd and tell them what I really do? Those are some of the worst, let's say, half hours of my life. Yes, it's like a half hour of my life gone. Because what do they start doing? Let's see. 3 times I have been forced to talk about astrology because I said I teach philosophy. They go right into something like, oh, really? You teach philosophy? Well, I'm Sagittarius. Well, I don't even know which one that is. That is not what I do for a living. Twice I've gotten people into conversation after saying I teach philosophy about the Lord of the Rings. I saw it once. It was pretty good. That is not what I do for a living either. Anyway, so what my advice to you is unless you are running into someone that you know you really trust and they are bright or at least humble, you will also lie. So you're going to memorize your schedule, but you're going to take this class out, right? So think, let's say this is your schedule. Somebody's going to say, oh, what are you studying? What are you taking in school? And if you don't see that they are really bright and love books and are a big nerd, you are going to replace this class with something that they understand and might even respect, like accounting or finance or business, right? So you're going to memorize your schedule. You're going to say, well, I'm studying English, I'm studying math, I'm studying accounting, and I'm studying music or something, right? Uh-oh, better not say music. That'll get you laughed at. You'll get the pizza joke about getting a degree of music. Anyway, so you are going to lie unless you run into someone you can trust. Then I'm going to give you a nice introduction to what philosophy really is when you find a listener who can understand this kind of thing. All right, so now let's get to the real answer. First, if you had a textbook, and they suck almost all the time, so I don't use one, but if you had one, it would give you some brilliant information on the first page, that was sarcasm, that would tell you what the roots of the words are of the subject you're studying. So, for example, this can be helpful for the more ordinary subjects. If you say you are studying theology, all you have to do is look up what the words are. Theos is God, logos is to give an account or to study it, and so you're studying God. Easy. Geology, logos study, geo, earth, study of earth. Yay! Psychology, psyche, soul, right? You're studying the soul or the self when you're studying psychology. What are the roots of my subject? We've got philos and sophos. Philos is love. Sophos is wisdom. So, should I tell people that what I do is I'm in love with wisdom? That's what I do for a living. Now, I love it because it is true. I'm in love with knowledge and books and learning. But what do you study if you're taking a class in the love of wisdom? Please imagine for a moment. Yes, you guys are all imagining clothing optional, sitting Indian style in the woods somewhere. You probably have some good doses of sativa, right? There you are, naked Indian style. Yes, that's probably what the love of wisdom class should look like. But sorry, that's not what I'm actually teaching, right? Have fun imagining all that. So we need an answer for when we do find someone we can trust. You're at a family function, most of your family are morons. I know that's what family is, but we love them, right? You can't choose your family. But you might have an aunt, let's say, who you trust, right? She's humble, she's sincere, she doesn't yell, maybe she's even nerdy, right? That would be great. So here's what you do. You lie to the rest of the family, you don't tell them anything about philosophy, and then you pull your aunt aside and you want to tell her what you're actually studying because, and I think you'll find this to be true, you're going to like this class. And so you're going to want to talk about it, right? Now, you're going to tell her that you're actually studying philosophy and it's been really great. And she's going to ask you, oh, well, what is philosophy? Right? Oh, that's proof you're talking to the right person. They don't presume they know what they're talking about yet. Good? So she asked you. Here is a better definition. Now, please write this down. This is not a memorization kind of a class, but I think you should write this down. I might ask you a little question about it in a reading question or a little quiz, right? And this definition is the best thing I've come up with through the years, and I'm finding it be more and more promising the more I use it. Here it is. Philosophy is the study of the presuppositions in all fields of knowledge or thought. Okay, now, presuppositions, big word. You could use the word assumptions. I just don't like it as much because it's overused and can be distracting. So assumptions means pretty much the same thing, but let's use the presuppositions in all fields of thought. All right, so this is going to be the tricky part to explain. So let me tell, here is my teaching style, is to tell a bunch of stories. I think we learn best through stories. And so let me tell, say, 3 or 4 stories about what it means that philosophy is the study of the presuppositions in all fields of thought. Story number 1. Let's pretend, oh, these are some of my favorite stories, that you have a time traveling machine. And you look at the cost of tuition around you today and you say, oh my gosh, I can't afford to go to school. Why don't I live somewhere like Europe or Asia where taxes pay for all tuition and school is free no matter how many degrees you want to get, right? As long as you qualify for the degrees. You instead live in the United States. School is super expensive. We have a weirdly unequal society. All right, so You decide that it's cheaper to buy a time machine, and you go back and you're going to study 100 years ago in one of the major universities in the world at the time, right? Let's go back, right? So you arrive at, let's say, Cambridge or Trinity or Oxford or something, some of the really famous schools. Okay? And let's say you're going back 200 years because you want this to be really cheap. Good? You show up at your school and you tell them what you're interested in studying, right? So right now, think of all the subjects you're interested in, right? So you say, I want to study math, I want to study psychology, I want to study history, I want to study economics, whatever you say, sociology, anthropology, whatever you want to study, right? Now, you show up and you say, I'm very happy to be here at Oxford and I can't wait to get started studying fill in the blank. Well, almost anything you say right there, right? Psychology, engineering, physics, whatever it is, chemistry, they are going to say, oh, welcome to our school. They're going to be nice. They're going to have a weird accent, of course, right? Welcome to our school. And let me show you where the philosophy department is. And you are going to say, no, I want to be able to feed a family. I'm not studying philosophy, you weird limey bastard with a weird accent. I want to study physics, engineering, right? I want to study biology, chemistry, math. And they will say, I am sorry, person with a weird accent wearing weird futuristic clothing, but that is where we teach chemistry, psychology, philosophy, obviously, physics, engineering. That is taught in the philosophy department. It was. Do you know this? Do you know that all of your subjects in historically were subdisciplines of philosophy? We philosophers who you ridicule and who your uncle thinks is worthless invented all of the subjects that he respects. We invented these subjects, and they were in philosophy departments for years and years until relatively recently. So what happened? What happened is, historically, as philosophers and major thinkers, and you can even look into this, all the subjects you study, and if you go to their foundation, you will find philosophers. You won't find mathematicians, you will find philosophers working on the problems of mathematics. Well, so what happens over time? And this is actually fairly recently, right? For most subjects, this is just 100 years or so. What happens is the people focused on a certain topic, a certain subdiscipline of philosophy, right, get a little tired of dealing with the presuppositions. And so they say, okay, all right, guys, it was fairly sexist in its history, right? Sorry. Let's not talk about the presuppositions right now. Let's just assume a handful of things and focus our attention on this one subdiscipline. So what do they say? All right, guys, we're going to call it physics. And when we're doing physics, we'll just presuppose some things. We won't have to do any philosophy right now. We will take the theory for granted. So if you're doing physics or engineering, what do you take for granted? Basic cause and effect, permanence of matter and energy, things like this. You say, okay, we'll assume that physics, the basic physical laws work this way, and we won't have the philosophical discussion right now. We will assume those things. We will presuppose them. Now, let's go back to time travel, right? Now, let's get in our time traveling machine. You got your degree in physics back there 200 years ago, and now you come to a modern university and you say, I can't wait to start studying physics or engineering at this school, but now let's try this. Let's say that you announce that you don't presuppose the things of normal physics or engineering. So you don't believe that cause and effect are real. How would they treat you? Well, they would treat you like a crazy person, right? If they're witty, they would say, oh, I am so sorry. I think you're at the wrong university. This isn't Hogwarts. We don't do magic here. We do physics. We do engineering. All right, try another one. You've time traveled, right? You come to a modern university and you say this, right? So let me try to get you to understand what it means to have a presupposition. You arrive and you come to the chemistry department, right? And you tell them this. I can't wait to study chemistry. I just wanted to warn you that I do not trust the periodic table. I do not assume that it's true. Well, they'll think you're crazy because you can't do chemistry without presupposing the periodic table. So now you're getting what I'm getting at, right? To challenge the presuppositions of a subject is to challenge the very existence of the subject itself. That's a harsh example because chemistry does have a pretty good set of presuppositions. The periodic table seems well founded. So philosophers look at it, they study these presuppositions, and they say that subject's on good footing, right? It's doing well. But imagine you're going to study engineering or physics. Pretend you're going to study physics without taking for granted how cause and effect work. Pretend that you are dealing with the presuppositions. And by the way, this is a real issue. Cause and effect, and even ideas like time and space, are mostly in our heads. They are not clearly out there in the world. They are just how we organize things in our brains to make sense of the world. But, right, if you say that in your engineering department, they're just going to think you're crazy. Now, are there real problems with cause and effect? Sure. Look at subatomic physics, right? If you're dealing with particle physics, time seems to reverse. Cause and effect seems to fail sometimes. Yes, these are real issues, and philosophers for years have been warning you about it. But what happens? About every 100 years you come crying to us saying, uh-oh, we think our assumptions are wrong, can you help us? We say, yes, we will help you, but first, let me just tell you that I told you so. I told you this would happen. This is what's going to happen all the time in all of your subjects, psychology, medicine. You're going to have to come crying to us every once in a while and say, sorry, we need your help again. Yes, and then you meet us around. But, so are you starting to see what a presupposition is? Right? These are the things that we take for granted, but philosophers keep their eye on. So, to be clear, philosophers study all of the subjects you study. I am interested in a bunch of the subjects we're talking about right now. But I am also interested in their presuppositions. As a philosopher, I keep an eye out for the assumptions being made because I want to study the whole subject, not just its current knowledge, but the theories and assumptions it's based on. All right, story number 2, right? Let's tell a story about me. Let's say that I hear that at a local university there's a great Freud scholar. She's supposed to be a great teacher teaching a class on Freud. Great. Psychology is one of my subfields, and I always want to make sure I understand Freud. He has a major influence on the way we think about things, right? So I'm going to sit in on these Freud lectures from this brilliant Freud scholar. Now, let's imagine, now that you know what philosophy is that professor happy to have me there? Now, please know, I would never be rude, right? She's probably brilliant, knows way more than I do, so I would be very humble and kind, but is that professor going to like a philosopher in that classroom? Well, no, right? I mean, she would like it personally, but it would be very distracting. For example, when I have a question, am I going to ask just a question about the normal Freud stuff? How do you take classes in psychology? You memorize what the thinkers say, you memorize the theory, you pass a test, and then you know the theories. Well, I'm going to be much more critical of the theories. And by the way, I like Freud a lot more than you do. You guys all have this weird idea about Freud, that he was stupid about everything. No, some of his conclusions I disagree with, but the theories are brilliant, right? You guys are Freudians, by the way, in the way you think. Anyway, so if I'm sitting in on these lectures and I have a question, what am I going to ask questions about? I'm not going to ask questions just about clarifying what Freud said. I mean, I'm sure she's going to do a great job of that. But I'm going to ask questions about what Freud is assuming in his thought. For example, right, I want to ask a question to a Freud scholar this question. Why does Freud think that the personality or our drives in our personality are hydraulic, right? Why does he think we build up pressure and we either explode? Notice how we talk this way. Think about how we talk about sexual frustration. We talk in hydraulic terms. Oh, I'm going to blow a fuse, right? I'm going to explode. I'm going to shoot up a school or whatever, right? So why did Freud start talking this way? And we all presuppose that that's how our desires are. They are these pressure-filled systems that build and they need to be released, right? You get this idea, right? Now, I'm going to want to talk to her about why did Freud assume that? What's his evidence for thinking that that's how the desires work? Is that something she's going to want to talk about? Well, in her nerdy self, yes. She's going to love that kind of conversation, but is that what the audience is expecting to talk about? No. What are students going to say if I ask that question? They're going to all raise their hands and say, is this going to be on the final? And then she's going to say, oh, I am sorry, no, let's get back to memorizing Freud's theories. Do you get the idea? The philosopher is studying Freud, but they're always keeping an eye out for things that are being presupposed, things that we might need to challenge because they might be inaccurate. All right. Story number 3. So let's try this one. Okay. Now, story number 3 will involve a little quiz that I'm going to take you into. There are some subjects that haven't. Now remember, historically, your subjects have kind of branched off from their connection to philosophy because they settle on their presuppositions. So they settle on presuppositions and they say, okay, now we're doing chemistry. Now we're doing psychology. We are not going to do the philosophy part anymore, right? We're still here to protect you. We're still here studying your presuppositions because you're screwing them up. But you are going to study without the conversation about presuppositions. Now, there are a few subjects that haven't left the philosophy department. There are subjects like logic, like ethics, that are still taught by philosophers in philosophy departments. Now, if you can figure out this story, then you really understand the depths of what philosophy is. So let's think about it. So first, let's talk about ethics. Why is ethics still taught in philosophy departments? Now, by the way, every once in a while it is taught by non-philosophers, people without training in ethical theory, and it becomes a joke, right? I saw a business ethics class that was taught by someone with no philosophy training. What was the class? What are the laws and how not to get in trouble, right? It wasn't about the actual ethics of right and wrong. It was just about how not to get caught for sexual harassment. Oh my gosh, it was so awful. Anyway. Why is ethics still taught in philosophy departments? Why hasn't it branched off and become its own department, trying to ignore its presuppositions? Think about it. Let's try a scenario. Let's say that we are together in a classroom and I say this. Oh no, you guys, I forgot a handout that I really need. Let me go run to my office really quick. I'll be back in about 10 minutes. But in that 10 minutes, I don't want you to just sit here and waste your time. I want you guys to talk about abortion. And I want you, when I get back, to have a position on abortion that you agree to as a class. All right? So talk about abortion. I'll be back in 10 minutes. How would that go? Well, if I wait 10 minutes, I would assume that by that time you would have been screaming at each other. I bet the furniture would be rearranged. There would be chair throwing. If I wait 15 minutes, there's probably weapons, right? There's probably firebombing if I wait 20 minutes. Why? Think about it. The problem in ethics, right? Why we need philosophers to deal with it is because we haven't settled on presuppositions. We don't have a set of assumptions that we all agree to before we start talking about ethics. And so this is where philosophy comes in, because philosophy is good at dealing with the presuppositions we have. So, for example, if I'm in charge of this discussion, I come back in 10 minutes and you're yelling at each other, here's what I would do. I would ask each of you different questions and I would find out what your presuppositions are. And so we would realize, right? I could point to certain groups that are screaming, okay, here. You guys think right and wrong is based on the consequences of your actions. Now, that theory has some faults, we'll talk about it, but that's why you don't understand those people. Those people think right and wrong is based on universal rules and obligations you have. And so that's how they define right and wrong. And those people over there, they think right and wrong is defined by care and relationships. You guys are speaking 3 completely different languages. Now let me show you the issues that you're presupposing and what their strengths and weaknesses are, and then you will find we mostly agree. When you realize the presuppositions you're making, now we will come to an abortion position that you can all get behind. Can't you see how that would be, right? That's what it is. So, logic. Logic is also still taught by philosophers in the philosophy department. Why? Why hasn't it branched off? Think about it. It's really kind of the opposite of what's happening in ethics. In ethics, we don't have a set of presuppositions we agree to. We have very diverse presuppositions. Now, they're not completely diverse. We can have discussions about right and wrong, very good discussions, right? That's why we need philosophers. Well, think of logic. What is logic? You use logic just when you got into this video. You used a ton of logic just to get through your day, just to drive a car, right? Just to talk to people. It requires incredible amounts of logic. Well, what is logic? Logic is the assumptions we make when we do any sort of reasoning. And to distinguish this from ethics, we have good presuppositions about logic. Our problems in logic, and we have a fairly illogical country most of the time, look at Trump, right? The problem with logic, right, is not that our assumptions are wrong, it's just that we apply them poorly. Our assumptions, unlike ethics, are pretty well agreed to. We just aren't very good at keeping an eye on them. So when we're studying logic, all we are doing is getting clear on what our assumptions are so we can apply them more carefully. The assumptions are fine, we just need to keep an eye on them. All right, so how is that? Is that okay? Could you tell that aunt that you trust some of those stories and tell her what philosophy is? It is the study of the presuppositions in all fields of thought, right? It is when you try not to assume things but think critically about everything you're thinking about so you don't screw it up. Good? And it's fun.